The days after the binding were a blur of silence and shadows. The villagers no longer spoke to me, their faces turned to stone when I passed. My home became a cage, every creak of the floorboards a reminder that I was trapped, not just by the mark but by the weight of their fear. They avoided my gaze, but I could feel their eyes on me, watching from behind shuttered windows. The hum had grown stronger, louder, a roar in my mind that never ceased. It wasn't just a sound anymore, it was a command. I could feel it pushing, pulling, tearing at my sanity. The mark on my wrist pulsed with its own heartbeat, like it was alive, feeding off my despair. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt it again, the call. This time, it wasn't a whisper but a pull, like unseen hands dragging me toward the forest. I resisted at first, clinging to the last shreds of my will, but it was no use. My legs moved on their own, carrying me to the edge of the village where the trees stood like silent sentinels. The watcher was waiting. His eyes, those unnatural embers, bore into me. He was clearer now, his form more defined, almost solid. His presence was overwhelming, like the darkness itself had taken shape and decided to stand before me. "Why do you fight it?" he asked, his voice echoing in the stillness. "The mark chose you. It's futile to resist. I don't want this," I shouted, the words breaking through the hum in my head. "I never asked for any of this." The watcher's smile widened, cold and knowing. "Want has nothing to do with it. You were chosen for a reason. The one who watches sees something in you, potential, power. But first, you must be broken. You must descend into the darkness before you can rise." His words filled me with dread, a terror that went beyond fear. It was like staring into an abyss that stared back, an emptiness that threatened to swallow me whole. And in that moment, I knew that whatever path lay ahead, it was darker than anything I could have imagined. "Embrace the darkness," he said, his voice like a hiss of wind through dead trees. "Only then will you understand." As he said those words, something shifted in his gaze, a softness that seemed almost familiar. And then it hit me. Like a memory that had been locked away, suddenly snapping open. I saw flashes of another world, another life, a bond one had forgotten. "You know me," I whispered, the realization dawning like a sunrise. "You're not just the watcher. You're..." A slow smile crept across his face. "Yes. I am your spirit husband." The mark was our bond, a seal to keep us connected, even when you crossed into the world of the living. My breath caught in my throat. The myths, the tales the elders told by the fireside, they had spoken of spirit husbands and wives, supernatural bonds that stretched across the realms. But I had never believed those were anything more than stories to frighten young girls. "Our union is older than your memory," he continued, his voice now soft, almost tender. "When you were born into this world, you left me behind. The mark was to remind you, to pull you back to what you once were. You may have forgotten me, but I never forgot you." A shiver ran through me. This was not the darkness I feared, not just an unknown threat. It was something more profound, more intimate. A bond that went beyond life itself, beyond what my mind could grasp. My spirit husband, a figure from another realm, claiming me in a way I had never imagined. "You cannot outrun what you are," he said. "You belong to both worlds now, and soon you will remember why you chose to bind yourself to me. The darkness is not your enemy, it's your inheritance." As he vanished into the shadows, I felt the ground beneath me give way, the world spinning out of control. The descent had begun, and there was no turning back. The village was different when I returned. The air was thick with a sense of dread, as if everyone knew something terrible was coming. The whispers had turned to mutters, and I could feel the weight of their stares more heavily than ever. They didn't see me as one of their own anymore. I was a threat, an outsider, the one marked by darkness. One night, I awoke to the sound of drums. Low and rhythmic, they echoed through the village like a heartbeat, pulling me from my bed. I knew instinctively that this was not a celebration. It was a call, a summoning. I followed the sound to the village square, where a fire blazed in the center. The villagers stood in a circle around it, their faces lit by the flickering flames. They chanted in a language I didn't recognize, their voices rising and falling in unison. And at the edge of the firelight, I saw them, the figures from my dreams, the ones who had stood with the woman with the crooked smile. They were real. The leader of the figure stepped forward, his face hidden beneath a hood, and pointed at me. "The marked one has come," he said, his voice deep and hollow. "The time of the gathering is at hand." The villagers' chant grew louder, more intense. They moved in closer, forming a tighter circle, trapping me in their midst. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't obey. The mark on my wrist burned hotter than ever, its light flaring like a beacon. The hooded man reached out, placing his hand over the mark, and I felt a surge of energy rush through me, like fire coursing through my veins. The world around me dimmed, and in its place, I saw visions, twisted shapes, shadowed figures, eyes that gleamed like stars in the void. "They will come for you," the man said, his voice echoing inside my mind. "The one who watches has claimed you, and soon, he will send his kin. The mark binds you to them all. You are the key." But there was something else in his gaze, a flicker of recognition. He leaned closer, his voice a whisper meant only for me. "You are more than the marked one. You are the bride of the darkness, bound by choice. Your spirit husband awaits, and he is not alone." The vision shattered, and I was back in the square, surrounded by the villagers and their chants. But now, they were not just afraid of me, they worshipped me. Their eyes gleamed with a madness I couldn't comprehend, a twisted reverence for something I didn't understand. "The gathering has begun," the man said, stepping back into the shadows. "And you, marked one, will lead us to the darkness." As the fire blazed and the drums beat on, I knew that I was no longer just a victim. I was a pawn in a game I didn't understand, a game that had only just begun. And whatever the Watcher and his kin wanted, they would stop at nothing to claim it, because to them, I was more than just a key. I was the bride who had promised herself to the shadows. The night stretched on, and the fire's light danced on the faces of the villagers, their eyes gleaming with that eerie, unsettling mix of fear and devotion. They looked at me like I was something holy and cursed all at once, like I was both their savior and their doom. The hooded figure's words echoed in my mind, repeating like a drumbeat, "You are the bride of the darkness, bound by choice." The truth weighed on me, sinking into my bones. I had not just been marked by accident or fate, this was something deeper, older. A promise I had made in another life, a bond one had willingly forged with a spirit husband. I tried to grasp what it all meant, why I would have made such a choice, but the answers slipped through my fingers like smoke. How could I have chosen this? To be tied to a being that lurked in the shadows, one who claimed to love me yet had turned my life into a waking nightmare. But as I stared into the flames, I felt a shift inside me, a flicker of something that wasn't entirely fear. Beneath the confusion, the terror, and the rage, there was a spark of recognition, a memory buried so deep it was almost forgotten. The hum in my head, the mark on my wrist, the pull to the forest, it all felt like a reminder of something I had once known, something I had been trying to reclaim. A sudden chill ran through the air, and the flames roared higher as if stoked by an unseen hand. The hooded man raised his arms, and the villagers fell silent, their chants dying out in an instant. He pointed to me again, his gaze never wavering. The Watcher's king will descend upon this place, he said, his voice steady and unyielding. And they will come for their queen. You must lead them, marked one. You must open the way. A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mix of awe and terror. Their eyes flicked back and forth between me and the hooded figure, unsure of what to fear more, me, or the darkness that awaited us all. Before I could process his words, the air around me began to warp, like heat rising off the sand on a scorching day. Shadows peeled away from the trees and slithered toward the fire, twisting and writhing like living things. Faces emerged within the darkness, not quite human, not quite beast, their eyes glowing with the same unnatural light as the Watchers. These were the kin he spoke of, the spirits that belonged to the world my husband ruled. They were here for me. I should have felt pure dread, but there was something else, too, a pull, a magnetic force drawing me toward them. The hum in my mind transformed into a symphony, a haunting melody that only I could hear. It wasn't just a noise anymore, it was a voice, soft and familiar, speaking to me from across the realms. Come back to me, it whispered, weaving through my thoughts. You are not meant for this place alone. You belong with us. You belong with me. And in that instant, I remembered. Fragments of another life rushed back to me, moments spent in a world of mist and twilight, a place where shadows whispered secrets and the air was alive with unseen magic. I remembered his face, not as the Watcher, but as he was before, the way his eyes softened when he looked at me, the way he held my hand like I was the center of his world. I had loved him. I had chosen him. And when I was reborn into the world of the living, I had left him behind, believing I could escape the bond we shared. But the mark was proof that some promises are too strong to break, some loves too powerful to forget. He was not just a spirit husband bound to me by fate, he was the darkness I had willingly embraced, the part of me that craved the unknown, the mystery that danced at the edge of dreams. He was both my captor and my companion, the one who knew every secret hidden in my soul. I stepped forward, closer to the fire, closer to the shadows that called my name. The villagers gasped, some backing away in fear, others too mesmerized to move. I raised my hand, the mark glowing like a brand, and for the first time, I didn't fight it. I let the power flow through me, let it consume me. You see, the hooded man said, his voice filled with reverence. She has accepted the call. The Queen of the Shadows has awakened. I turned to face the Watcher's kin, the spirits waiting on the edge of the light, their forms shifting and flickering like smoke. And I saw in their eyes what I had missed before, recognition, loyalty, a fierce devotion to their queen. They were not here to drag me into darkness against my will. They were here to welcome me home. I am more than the marked one, I said, my voice ringing out clear and strong. I am the bridge between worlds. The queen of what lies beyond. The air shimmered, and the Watcher appeared beside me, his form more solid, his smile more real than ever before. He took my hand, and the hum in my mind quieted, turning into a gentle melody, a song only we could hear. Welcome back, my queen, he whispered, his eyes blazing with a fire that matched my own. You have always been mine. And now, we will reclaim what was lost. Together, we turned to face the villagers, the flames casting long shadows behind us. Their eyes were wide with a mix of terror and awe, and I knew then that the time for fear was over. I was no longer just a girl marked by darkness. I was its queen, and the darkness had always been my kingdom.